Hello and welcome to Science. Today we're going to be doing about the brain and specifically how we can look and see what's going on inside the brain. This will help you with the 2F part of the workpack. So firstly, we need to actually look at the structure of the brain itself. How can we do that? Now, there are various different methods, and some are invasive and some are non-invasive. The invasive ones involve looking at the brain directly, so opening up the skull and observing what's going on. Now, often there's not a lot to see there, and because it's all to do with electrical stimuli because of the nerves, we need to be able to see what's going on with the electricity in the brain. So for that, often electrodes are attached to the brain so you can monitor what's going on. This also works when you have a brain of somebody who isn't dead. You can stimulate parts of the brain and see which of the bits light up to give a bit of an idea of how the brain works. So here we can see a image where we've got the different electrodes on this mesh here that are put on top of the brain. Each of these can be stimulated to see what happens, what the effect on the actual brain is. However, that's not entirely useful in all circumstances. You don't want to be working out what's going on in somebody's brain by opening the skull. Not generally seen as a good idea. So there have to be some non-invasive ways of looking at what's going on in the brain as well. Two of the things that you need to learn about are CT scans and PET scans. We're going to go through those now. So a CT scan shows the structures inside the brain. And what happens is it has a beam of X-rays that shine through the brain at different levels. So you'll have a beam going through at that level, then at that level, all the way through. Each time it goes through, you see a slice of the brain. Here is an example of one, and you can see from here, this is right at the bottom of the brain, and as we go through, we're moving up through the brain, and it allows us, the X-rays allow us to see the different structures within the brain without opening the person's head up. This is going to be here, right at the top of the brain, right at the top of the skull. So this can be used to detect abnormalities in the brain if one side of the brain is malformed, or there is a tumour or something would appear within the brain. So you could see something that was different. Well, a trained doctor can. Now, the benefits of a CT scan is obviously it's non-invasive. Some of the downsides are it does use ionizing radiation, so it's got X-rays. And also the fact that it doesn't show you much about how the brain works, but does allow you to look at the different structures that are in there, and it can be a really useful diagnostic tool. A PET scan actually shows brain activity. So a PET scan, the patient will be injected with radioactive glucose, which isn't quite as scary as it sounds. What will happen is that cells that are more active need more glucose for energy. So the cells that are more active will take up more of the radioactive glucose. Now, the radioactive atoms in the glucose emit gamma rays, which can easily pass through the skull. There's then a scanner around the brain which can detect those gamma rays. So the more active that part of the brain is, the more glucose it's taking up, the more radiation will be observed. That radiation can then be built up into a map to have a look at the brain activity itself. So you can see on here, as the radioactive glucose is taken up into the more active cells, they emit more of the radiation, which can be detected. So you can see the areas of the brain lighting up when they're more active. A lot of our understanding of the structure of the brain and the function of each of the different parts have come from this style of intervention. Okay, so an exam style question, sort of thing that you might be asked, would be something on the lines of explain the advantage of combining CT and PET scans when looking at the brain. So some hints to answer that. Because it's an explanation question, you'll need to say what the advantages are, but also why they are advantages. So a good place to start is the advantages of a CT scan and advantages of the PET scan. You then need to go on to say that the shortfalls of one are countered by the benefits of the other, both ways. So to get all the marks, you'd need to be talking about what the specific advantages of a PET scan are, the fact that you can see the activity in the brain and what's going on, but it's difficult to see all the structures in there. That's countered by use of a CT scan, where you can see the structures but not the activity. Combination of all of that helps to increase our understanding of what's going on in the brain, how each of the structures are related to the function of them. Cheers.